And I have a special guest on today, Gary Davis with Telemetry Insight. Gary, tell us the title that you have in this wonderful new startup that's kind of exploding right now.
Yes, it's exciting. So I am the director of business development. Been with the company since January of this year, and it's been a great ride so far. So good. So
Okay, so for those who don't know, can you explain what the title of the company means, Telemetry Insight?
yeah, so basically, what our company does is we are in the pump jack automation business, being able to gather information about what's happening with the pump jacks in the oil field, uh, deliver that information remotely to our customer base to allow them to make better decisions in how to operate their organization, allow them to operate with more efficiency, allow them to operate and maximize their production, minimize their equipment failures, all of that. So this kind of technology has been around for 40 to 50 years. However, the existing technology that's out there can be very cost prohibitive for for companies that have these smaller, lower producing wells, of which there's a vast majority of the wells, in the United States and the world would fall into that category of a lower
Wow.
producer.
Okay.
So
But now, from what I understand, you've also added using artificial intelligence, which that aspect is new, isn't it?
absolutely. So that a big piece of this, puzzle is being able to utilize the new technology to create, a product that allows us to become more cost effective. So part of that element is artificial intelligence. Part of that is the hardware technology that's evolved over the years from those original products that have become very cost prohibitive.
Wow. Okay, let's get into now. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but let's get into your background, particularly because this isn't your first rodeo, so to speak, in starting companies. So tell us, first of all, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in New
So
Mexico?
I did not. I grew up in a very small town in the Oklahoma Panhandle, literally about 200 people. Um, my story is I tell people I spent the first 18 years of my life figuring out how to relocate from there. My great grandparents actually came out in a covered wagon during the land rush and claimed their stake during that
Mm.
time. So my grandparents, my mother still lives in the same small town. I get out there several times a year to visit her. But yeah, nothing much has changed there. There's not even a stoplight. So so it's a very different, very different world from, that I grew up in compared to where I've been once I left for college and started down that path in my life. So
Wow.
that's where I grew up. Again, it's, small town, middle America.
How did that shape you as a person? Do you feel like that really dictated how you are and how you are with people, maybe?
I think so. I mean, there's very much that, mentality, in the Midwest of, you help each other out. It's very it was very much a community, as far as, everybody looked out for each other. Everybody there were pros and cons. Everybody knows everybody else's business and what's going on.
Right.
Um, so it wasn't particularly as a teenager who might have been a little bit mischievous. We could not get away with a whole lot in that side of town. But it was it was, it again, being around people with that mentality and that, um, just that core belief of being a good person and treating others like you wanted to be treated. It certainly shaped who I am today for sure.
So, okay, so you were there until you were at least 18, and then you started. What did you do first as work for you?
So my part of that being in that environment is I fell in love with the game of golf, and how that happened, uh, is a bit of its story in itself. But there was no golf course in the town. There was no, really golf facility. The nearest golf courses were about 15 miles away. And one day I was out. We had a really nice sports facility at our school. So one day I was a football player, and that's football in Texas, Oklahoma, anywhere like that is king.
Yeah.
So played football. My football coach was actually out at this sports complex that we had hitting golf balls, and I was out there. I just happened to be passing by on my bike, and he said, "Gary, come over here and try this." And so I was like, "All right," and hit, picked up the club, hit a golf ball. I hit it. It was pure beginner's luck, but I hit it in the middle of the club face and went nice and high and straight. And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of cool." And so I ended up going home telling my dad I wanted to take up golf, and he kind of looked at me like I was nuts because he, had never been around it, never really had any experience with it. But my parents bought me as my first set of golf clubs, and I went all in, and I would practice hours and hours a day. And it's at one point I decided, um, I got a scholarship to go play golf at a small community college in Dodge City, Kansas. Realized
Wow.
when I was there that my future was probably not playing golf for a living on the tour or anything like that. So, but I decided, there's opportunities in the golf business. And so from there, I transferred to New Mexico State University, and I've been in New Mexico or Colorado ever since. But they had a program there. There was only three in the country at the time that basically their goal was to work with the PGA of America to develop, golf professionals to go into the golf industry, to run golf courses,
Wow.
manage, maintain golf courses, all of that. So that
Yeah.
kind of my path that led to my, stint in the golf business, of which, I'm still a PGA golf professional, still keep my membership, but I've been out of the golf business itself for, I guess, since 2021. So
Hmm.
kind of, I say I went into my semi-retired phase until I got back into the full workforce with Telemetry Insight.
Yeah. What's fascinating to me about being an entrepreneur is you're the kind of people that it draws. For
Mhm.
instance, Telemetry Insight has a lot of fascinating people with varied backgrounds, really creative people and very intelligent, high level people. And then you put that creativity together, huh?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I love about the company is just the diversity of the backgrounds. I mean, until I started with this company, I mean, I knew what a pump jack was. I mean, in fact, actually, my mom has interest in several of them in Oklahoma, but I'd never actually physically been to one. But yeah, just the entrepreneurial spirit and the idea of a startup was something that always appealed to me. And I've actually started several companies myself. I started a fly fishing rod company back in 2021 that was basically an e-commerce company. We've grown it and expanded it, which has been great.
Yeah.
Um, this year, we're up in the neighborhood of 800%. Again, basically just doing it all online via e-commerce, and it's been a lot of fun. And so I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, I guess. Love to create or solve problems and help people come up with solutions that maybe they hadn't thought of yet. So
Yeah, for people who maybe haven't ventured out like that, but I think a lot of people in the oil industry obviously have. To me, it seems like a really exciting field and kind of like still the frontier, kind of it's almost like cowboys. It's like out taking risks and kind of doing a dangerous job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's and it's been really interesting part of the learning experience. You've got everybody from, what they call your super majors, which are, are Conocos, Phillips, Petroleum, all of that, all the way down to, these smaller companies, which might be one guy who owns five wells. And,
Wow.
you know,
Yeah.
of what he does is he manages his five wells, and so it's a wide gamut of people you meet in the industry, from engineers to pretty sophisticated business people to people who just work in the field. And they, we had a meeting with ConocoPhillips 2 days ago, I guess, and one of the principals we're working with there, he's a fourth generation oil field person. His
Wow.
great grandfather, his grandfather, his dad, they've all worked in the oil and gas industry. So, and you see a lot
Wow.
of that there. You see a lot of people who is just generation after generation stay in the industry.
Now, the headquarters for Telemetry Insight is in New Mexico, particularly Albuquerque. I know you have people in other states also working with you, but tell us about your experience with New Mexico. And it's a great place to live, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and like I say, when I came to New Mexico as I guess I was a 19-year-old to go to college, and I had spent quite a bit of time out here. My dad in particular really loved the mountains, and I
Hmm.
actually learned how to ski when I was 10 at Red River up in northern New Mexico, and
Yeah,
skiing's one
beautiful.
of my passions right now. And then, so I always had an affinity for the mountains and even the desert. So once I got here, like I said, I've lived in New Mexico or Colorado ever since I left, small town I grew up in. So yeah, I love New Mexico. I love the diversity. I love, the fact that, it's, so many outdoor activities. I mean, I can get my fly fishing in, I can get my mountain biking in, I can get my in, all within within a pretty short drive of where we live. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Let's go back to a little. That's something that, let's just say there's a lot of fear out there and a lot of misconceptions, maybe. I was thinking of what you're doing, like, it's not scary. It's something that's going to enhance what you're doing. It's like having a Jeep. You're going in the mountains, and I'm going to add lights on the top of my Jeep so that, I can make it down the mountain when I'm in the dark, you know?
Sure. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's, with the, you know, with the advances in technology, to be able to use, machine learning, which is essentially what artificial intelligence is, in my mind anyway.
Hmm.
um, the ability to use that for a product like we're developing to, basically shorten the curve, I guess, for lack of a better term, of being able to get the data we need to be able to make, you know, recommendations to our customers to help them enhance it and enhance their operation and create more efficiencies
Hmm.
and be able to make better business decisions. So there's obviously there's lots of applications of AI. I understand that, there's, the old Terminator movie, right? I understand that there's people who have the concept of that's what that is, right? But the big piece of it is, you know, it's like anything else. It's any other, tool you have. It's how you use it, right? And so, yeah, I can see that there's some negative connotations to it, I guess, for lack of a better term. Particularly, if you're not up to speed on how it's being used and what it's being used for. And even for me, I mean, I can see where there's could be a potentially detrimental element to it,
Sure.
but hopefully as we continue to understand it and utilize it, we're definitely working towards using it as a benefit for everybody instead of a detriment.
Yeah, and you look through history and new technology, does tend to scare people. Of course, we're in an accelerated time period
Sure.
where we can hardly keep up with the technology, but people were afraid of the horseless carriage. People were
Yeah.
afraid of having a laptop in your home or a personal computer. So yeah, there's a learning curve that we have to do, but wow, there's a lot of opportunity, and a lot of creativity that's going into it. And I think very useful things like what you're doing, to help a small business, to help them, be more efficient. I mean, what a great goal.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's, with these advances in technology, and again, they are coming at us faster and faster and faster, every single day,
Yeah,
but with advances in technology, not only in, software, artificial intelligence, but hardware and the quality of hardware that you can get. I mean, you think about, if you bought a computer 20 years ago, what that costs versus what you can go buy a laptop for today that does, exponentially more than that one could ever do, or even, smartphones, nowadays. I mean, um, So the advances in the technology, both on a hardware side and a software side, is really what's allowing our company to look at this, 40, the problem's been around forever, ever since they started, pumping oil, but to look at this from a different perspective and say, okay, is there a better, more efficient, cost-effective way to build this mousetrap,
Mm,
and looking at it from a whole new approach. And that's really what we've done. And
ah,
but the side of that is like you talk about, there is this entrenched mindset that, oh, you can only do it this way. So
right.
one of our challenges, and one of the things that we're continuously working on, is helping to educate and help these customers who may have been around this older technology to understand technology is evolving. Some people get it right away. Other people, it takes a little bit longer for them to latch on to the fact that, yeah, there probably is a better way to do this, a more cost effective way that's going to enhance their bottom line. So there's definitely an educational element to what we're doing and where we're at as a company at this point. Again, helping people to understand that, yeah, with the technology we're using, you actually can do and can see the things that these other more cost prohibitive, or at least more expensive tools that are out there now and have been used, there is these advantages that are allowing us to do this.
That's awesome. So, okay, this is a get to know Gary Davis session. Tell us about the guitars on your wall. I mean, I see quite a few of them there.
Yeah, and that's only a small portion. Actually, if I was able to pan around the room, I actually just got a new one yesterday, as a matter of fact. So
Wow.
the guitar that kind of started, my grandparents actually had a band. My grandfather was a guitar player.
Wow.
My grandfather was a drummer. They had a whole band. They actually, they had a fiddle player, they had a banjo player, had a bass player. They actually had, I don't know if you remember, but people used to play the washboard, like use
Oh yeah,
spoons
yeah.
washboard. They had that in their band. And what they did was they played like senior dances. And so they
Oh,
had this cool deal that they did, again, back in Oklahoma. And I remember, as a kid, 11, 12 years old, me and my brother would get dragged to these dances. And of course, at that age, we just thought this was the worst thing ever, right? So, but eventually I got to see, how much my grandfather enjoyed playing the guitar and all of that. And actually, one of those guitars, like that one right there, is a 1952 Gibson ES
wow.
125 that my
Ooh.
mother bought for my grandfather with her first paycheck as a teacher. So that
Oh,
one's a special heirloom. Um, but yeah, so I kind of got the itch a little bit then, didn't really pursue it. Was so wrapped up in golf and sports and all that other stuff. And then I don't know, I guess about 15 years ago, I was actually teaching golf at the time full time, and I had a really good client that I worked with a lot who was a guitar player. And he said, I said, yeah, I kind of been thinking about maybe trying it out, told him that little story. And he's like, well, come over, I'll show you a few things. And so he did. And I kind of like got the itch. And it was like that led to the first guitar, which now is a total of, I think, 13 guitars. But one of the things I love about them too is, and again, I am a average guitar player at best, but I love them almost as much for their beauty and their design, the way they look. I almost consider them art.
beautiful
The
woods and yeah.
beautiful wood and the grain and how they're manufactured, and the care and the process that goes into manufacturing a really good guitar. So, I've got them all pretty much hanging on my walls or on stands where they're fully displayed all the time. And again, it's part of the decor, in
Yeah.
my office here, in my man cave, my slash music room. So yeah,
That's awesome.
started. So
Yeah, my first guitar was one of those little Sears
yeah,
that you got for Christmas. My parents gave me, and I bet you it was like $15, you know.
yeah,
But that started a love for me. I love still just holding a guitar, even, it's just a wonderful thing. Yeah. So,
exactly.
well, Gary, thank you so much for this time. I know how busy you are, and I will talk to you again, and we'll keep up with what Telemetry Insight is doing. Thank you so much. We'll see you again really soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Aloha.
All right. Bye-bye.